IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast by the Takshashila Institution. We are a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like bringing fresh perspectives to Indian affairs and Indian perspectives to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of All Things Policy. In today's episode, we will be talking about India's national cybersecurity strategy. So you may have already heard or read about a number of cyber attacks that have taken place recently in the year 2020 in the midst of the India-China standoff. For example, there was an alleged intrusion into the networks of 10 assets of India's power sector and 2 seaports by a Chinese state-sponsored threat actor called Red Echo. So this essentially shed light on the vulnerability of India's cybersecurity infrastructure. And we have also seen previous attacks like this taken place within the last decade. For example, the attack on the Kudankulam plant in Tamil Nadu on 30th October in 2020 and the attack on the National Stock Exchange in 2015, among many others. But despite facing so many attacks, India maintains resilience and deniability in its stance on the cyber attacks that it has faced and the policies governing it. So, to discuss more on this, I have with me Lieutenant General Prakash Menon. So, General Menon talks about this in his recent article in the print, which will also be linked along with the episode. So, welcome, General Menon.
Thank you, Amira.
So, I want to first ask you broadly, why is India still wary on its cybersecurity policies, and why is this issue not the topmost agenda in our strategic policies today?
Well, firstly, we must acknowledge that we have a long way to go. And although we can't sit in judgment on ourselves, but there are a lot of reports now which have ranked India as far as its cyber power is concerned. And a recent report done in the Harvard University ranked us 21st among 30 nations of the world. Of course, they also ranked the USA number 1, China number 2, but surprisingly, they ranked Israel quite low down. So, that's, I think, definitely not correct. But the point is, India definitely has to do more. And why is it not happening is an answer. It doesn't easily have an answer because we have very good IT talent. We also should be extremely concerned because we are developing a digital connectivity for everything possible, like all nations of the world are. And the more our dependency on the cyber space grows, the more the need to protect it. So, despite the fact that in 2013, we came out with a cyber policy, and this was done by the previous government, where they identified the main areas where we need to strengthen, including the mobilization of human capital. But yet, we are still yet to roll out a cyber strategy, although we hear that it is coming out shortly. And it follows true to form the national security strategy, which also has been expected for a long time. So it seems to me that we know what has to be done, but we cannot get it done. And I think the nub of the problem is the inability to bring the various stakeholders on board, get them to agree about a common approach. And that has always been a challenge for India, and it is a challenge across the world. But we haven't seemed to overcome it. So now we've got enough warning. As you said, our critical infrastructure has been attacked, and we need to actually move much faster than we are at the same pace.
Yeah, and also I want to add that we do the security, the infrastructure governing cybersecurity policies today and cybersecurity governance does exist in India to some extent. However, this is not a centralized agency, and a cybersecurity body has been formed under the Ministry of Defense, But do you think that we need to have an independent ministry altogether to attend to this issue? Because, as we know, in the information age and the age of nuclear threats, cyberspace and cybersecurity is coming up to be one of the most important aspects of strategic policy and foreign policy among many nations. And you talk about the US and Russia in your article, and how they have come together to condemn the cyber attacks that have taken place on each other's countries, but also they've also cooperated to work together to to counter cyber attacks. So, do you think for India we need a centralized agency and an independent ministry to look over this?
Definitely not an independent ministry at all, because the cyber space actually is layered over all ministries, all fields of activity, across government, across the private sector. The question really is who is or which entity coordinates it. So you mentioned about the Defense Cyber Agency. Now that's a subset of the larger cyber architecture. Cyber architecture in this case finally has to be, and we have the responsibility for coordination has been given to the NTRO, which is the National Technical Research Organization, and also other ministries which deal with IT. So we need to bring it all under one roof as far as the people who are monitoring, because one of the first requirements of that architecture is cyber intelligence, about cyber domain awareness, that you need to actually keep a tag of that domain. You need to monitor it and across the national infrastructure. So that will be the first requirement. And that because only when you have that, and I'm not saying that we don't have it as yet, the very fact that the minister in the Lok Sabha has admitted to the fact that in 2019 we had about 4 lakh of cyber incidents, they called it. And in 2020, the 4 lakhs becomes 12 lakhs, which is quite a jump. Although there is no clarity about what a cyber incident is. So whether it is done by criminals, whether it's done by a state. So all this has been conflated. So we're not able to make out which is the one which is posing threat to national security. But be that as it may, the two arms of cyber power, which is your ability to defend and the ability for offensive operations, which means your ability to penetrate other systems, have the deterrent capability, cannot be separated, because frankly, this domain does not, it cannot be managed in silos. And therefore, there is no separate ministry required. All they have to do is, whichever organization which is responsible at the apex has under one roof those elements which represent the various sectors across government and the private. That has to be working together. Right now, they are in silos, and that is what the difficulty has been, and we need to break that. And the only person who can break that is why they have appointed a cyber security coordinator at the National Security Council Secretariat, which works directly under the National Security Advisor. It is his job to be the coordinator. It is his job to actually come out with a national cyber strategy. But so far, they have not been able to do it. Since we do not know why exactly the reasons are, we can only guess. And my guess, as I told you earlier, is about getting everybody to agree, because eventually entrenched interests like to protect their turf, especially with the corporates. After all, for them, it's about the bottom line regarding profits and the balance you have with security. So it's not easy. It's not going to be easy, but we have to do it. But more than anything else, there has to be across government or across individuals what you call sensitivity and a high degree of cyber hygiene. And we also know that despite all this, adversarial forces will penetrate your information systems, your computer devices, your information infrastructure, your personal devices. The question is, can we spot that early enough and take countermeasures? And what countermeasures are to be taken is what policy has to determine, that under what circumstances what will do what. But that is something which is very yet to publicize. We simply do not know whether it is something which has already been decided but not publicized. But we should not give the impression that we are not prepared, and that is dangerous. So, what I say in my article is that our image as far as cyber deterrence is concerned needs to be strengthened. Because if you look weak, then that's an invitation for disaster. And that's the point I make.
Yeah, and in your article, you mentioned how the Parliament has sort of concealed from the public issues of cyber attacks or cyber security that could be of serious national security concern. So you mentioned two issues that emerge here. So can you tell us a little bit about it that you talk about in your article?
Yeah, actually, I say that, so far we seem to be actually being in denial when cyber attacks have taken place. That seems to be the policy. We don't admit to cyber attacks, or even if we admit to it, we simply say that it is not successful. And I give the example of the Bombay attack, where the the power system was put down for several hours. Train stopped, lift stopped. Bombay was in for a couple of hours really affected. Yet many months later, by 6 months later, the Maharashtra Minister of Power admitted that it was traced to a malware in their system, and probably it had come from China. We do not know what sort of proof was there, but this is the public statement made by the minister from the state government. But on the other hand, the Central Minister of Power contradicted this. And he said that this power outage was because of a human error, which blatantly obviously was wrong, because there were foreign sources, foreign guys who monitor all this, who said that this is the group which has done it, and that group is affiliated to China. So if the government policy is to not to admit, then we must be careful, because people are watching and monitoring the way you are handling these cyber attacks. They'll factor that in when they want to carry out the next one. And next one is just a matter of time, because this will continue to happen. This space itself, what I say, has got two major issues, which is the cyberspace is ungoverned. It doesn't have any international governance mechanism. Two, all these activities which you carry out can be denied. It's very difficult to prove. Even if you have proof, the other person can deny. So based on this, nation states have found this to be a good medium to use. And when we know that the Russians have been involved in influencing the American election, that this time when Biden met Putin on the 15th of June in Geneva, one of the things which he accused the Russians of was for launching cyber attacks on the American critical infrastructure. He gave him a list of 16 critical infrastructure systems, and he warned that in case you do anything against this system, we will reply through cyber power. Of course, Putin denied it, and he in fact counter-accused the Americans for doing the same to them. So the point is that this is ungoverned space, and therefore it will be utilized for use against adversaries, to actually hurt them, because the more you are dependent on cyber power, it is easier for your adversary to affect you. But cyber power by itself can cause damage. Yes, it can actually bring planes down, have planes to crash, can do all that. But damage you can do, but what happens after that? Because let's say, if you take the instance of the Bombay attack, I'm sure after the Bombay attack, we would have taken now precautionary measures go across other systems also. So the reason for the Bombay attack could have been that China wanted to send us a message, wanted to expose India's cyber vulnerability, to send a message that this is nothing, we can hurt you more, to put the Indian political leadership on guard. So all these political messages can be sent. But by itself, as far as we are concerned, and as far as China is concerned, it cannot facilitate the capture of territory and so on. Because after you have let's say, neutralize the armed forces command and control system with cyber. You want to control territory, then you have to actually physically move in there and stand there with a gun to guard it. So cyber space in offensive terms has to be one among the team players of statecraft. It cannot, there's nothing called cyber war. There can be cyber warfare, which will be one type of warfare in the cyber domain. It cannot have an independent existence. The only existence it can have now is to send political messages, which is what they are doing. But more than anything else, cyber is also a space where you can snoop, you can spy, you can sit within systems, you can derive a lot of intelligence from it, and all nations are in the game. Of course, you'll never come to know about it till somebody exposes something or the other. And as you know, the US has been at the receiving end because of the fact that people who are dealing with these sort of things expose them in the international space. So, as far as India is concerned, the cyber world, the nature of the cyber world is not going to change. It is unlikely to be governed because of the fact that even if you reach an agreement, how do you prove that somebody has violated? Because it is deniable. He'll just say, I didn't do it. You can't prove it. So you can only have an agreement which can be verified. So this space is going to be ungoverned. And unless all nations agree that this is dangerous territory, where they can do harm to each other and then come to an agreement, but it seems to be unlikely in the geopolitical ambience which prevails today. So governance is not there, and deniability will continue to be so. In combination, these two will be exploited by nations concerned. And I see no reason why India should also not do the same.
Yeah, so a number of reasons actually stated for cyber attacks taking place on India in the past have, as you've already mentioned, has been either for espionage or information theft, or simply for psychological reasons. So you've already mentioned that this makes us more vulnerable and prone to cyber attacks from foreign nations through exploitation. But with a national security strategy doctrine not in place yet and finalized and actually, defining our cyber security governance issues, what do you think we should expect from this doctrine in terms of the way we govern cyberspace in the future? Of course, after seeing the way during the China-India standoff, we saw cyber attacks from China. So what should we expect in terms of cyberspace governing for India to strengthen its security architecture?
The strategy will say what are the different parts of the cyber power domains which we should strengthen, which we should develop. That's one part, which means it's about developing a certain type of power in the cyber domain. That is where you put your money in. That's one part, both to defend and for offensive. The other thing is about how are you going to use this power to pursue the political objectives of the country itself. That is where the strategy should take into account who the adversaries are, who are likely to target us, how do we need to deal with them. In any case, we should have a doctrine. Well, the strategy is there, but we should have a doctrine which must give out as to what is our reaction going to be when we are hit by cyber attacks. So the issue really is that without these, it is very difficult to guard. So you must have this so that people are ready to react the way that they want to do it.
Yeah. So thank you, General Menon, for joining me on this discussion. And before you sign off, I just want to let everyone know that Takshashila Institution is offering education programs for a semester and up to 1 year. It is all online and you can take it from anywhere. So the admissions are now open for our 12-week graduate certificate program in public policy, defense, foreign affairs, TechWin policy, and health and life sciences. So if you are interested to know more, you can visit takshashila.org.in/courses to find out more. And I will link it below along with this episode. So thank you, General Menon, for joining us.
Thank you, Amira. Thank you very much.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank the sponsors on the network this week. Thank you so much to Cred, CED, and Global Victoria. Without you guys, this thing would not be possible. So, on the note, Maruk Inayat gives us an overview of the potential Twitter ban in India. On this round is on me. Gauri Devi Dayal was joined by actor-producer Poorna Jagannathan to talk about her career in Bollywood, Hollywood, and theatre. She talks about the upcoming season of the show Never Have I Ever. On Cyrus Says, we had legendary musician Usha Uttup. She took us through her journey and shared her experiences as the unconventional musician. In the second installment of the Father's Day special on Akla Station Adulthood, Ayushi has a candid conversation with her father, Siddhartha Amin. On the Global Victoria Tech Talks podcast, we showcase some compelling new tech stories coming out of Melbourne. Whether it's from the buzzing gaming industry or the robust edtech sector, Victoria is increasingly becoming a hub of emerging technology. And we talk to some thought leaders and industry legends about the same. Catch all the action from the World Test Championship on the Edges and Sledges podcast. For our Hindi listeners, we have Khel Niti, which goes live on YouTube every morning. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Want to learn something new and have a few minutes to spare? Well, then go for the Traveling Professor's Diary, where I, Siddharth Deshmukh, the Traveling Professor, will help you glean from all the insights that I've gained from wherever I've traveled, learned, taught, and repeated. Join me every Tuesday and Thursday on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.